Hi everyone, my name is Kate Dean. I'm Director of Enable Disability and Inclusion Consultants. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here talking with you as part of the IMAGE project. So the project to improve employability of autistic graduates in Europe. So I'm going to be talking to you about the transition of autistic graduates into employment and what's important for employers and careers advisors to understand and do. Time for questions at the end. Hopefully get some good questions and a good conversation going, even though we've only got a short window of time this morning. So let's do some scene setting to start off with. So before I started Enable Disability and Inclusion Consultants, I spent 14 years working in higher education in universities, leading and managing student-facing disability support teams. And much of that time was spent at Leeds Beckett. In my time there, we saw, and I'm sure is no different to any other universities, a 20% year-on-year increase in the number of autistic students coming to study at a degree level with us. And presumably this reflected increased diagnoses in school and generally greater awareness and knowledge and understanding around autism. So here are the statistics from the Office for Students for the 2018 academic year. So autistic students may fall into the social or communication impairment category. And whilst this figure is only 0.6% of the overall disabled student total, the data may actually disguise the true figure, as many autistic students will declare their impairment as a cognitive or specific learning difficulty, or declare under multiple impairments as co-occurring conditions are common, whether these be another neurodivergent condition or specific learning difficulty, as is the language in higher education, or perhaps a mental health condition or a long-term health condition. Some students may not share this information at all. They may self-identify as autistic, but have never been diagnosed, or may well go on to be diagnosed as they progress through their studies. Some may never share information as they may not identify as being disabled. Many of the students I've met with in higher education are often pursuing those interests which have fascinated them for years. So examples here of military history, ethical hacking, jazz music, zoology, in particular pelicans. After all, what are universities if not full of academics pursuing meaningful careers in their special interests? And so surely this suggests a promising bright future ahead for our autistic graduates, doesn't it? So since January 2020, autism was added as a response option to the annual population survey that's then collated by the Office for National Statistics and allowed us for the first time to explore employment outcomes for autistic people. Devastatingly, the figures are bleak. Originally, it was estimated that 16% of autistic people were in full-time employment, a shocking figure in itself, but actually it's worse than we thought, and only 22% of autistic people were in any kind of employment, be that full-time or part-time. Autistic people also had employment rates which were significantly lower than the employment rate of the overall disabled population, which was still really low, of just over 50%. And so why is this? And of course, reasons are often complex. However, I would see a few key areas for us to be mindful of, but importantly, think how we can use this to shape a brighter future for our autistic graduates. And so work experience. Gaining experience of the working world while studying can be a challenge for many disabled students as they use all their energy completing their studies. But it can be particularly difficult for autistic students when it comes to finding and keeping a job. Barriers exist, multiple barriers in application, recruitment processes, not to mention in the onboarding and subsequent line management of autistic people. That's often caused and exacerbated by lack of knowledge, support, and/or discrimination in the workplace, however inadvertent this is. But these are real challenges for autistic young people when getting and keeping a job. And then there's the fear of sharing. So autistic people not sharing their autism for fear of perceived or actual judgment, stigma, or discrimination in the workplace, or maybe wanting to shed a label which may have been overtly applied to them throughout their education. And the deficit model is a big one. The biggest barrier we face is attitudinal. because all we do is view autism in a deficit model of what people can't do, what they struggle with, what they have difficulties with. As I say, there are a multitude of barriers that exist within study, within our workplaces, whether this be working hours, location, the impact of the working environment and the effect this has on somebody's concentration, focus, productivity. The unwritten social rules or expectations of the workplace are vast, or maybe the way in which we communicate tasks and instructions. But we can do something about all of these through adjustments and enabling strategies that allow people to work to their strengths. And we can also create inclusive environments where people can flourish and thrive. This doesn't, of course, but just benefit autistic people. Good autism practice is good practice for everyone. And that's not to say that autistic people don't experience challenges. Autistic people do experience challenges in executive functioning, so time management, working memory, processing speed, and sometimes significant challenges in these areas. There's frequently a need for structure, certainty, predictability, familiarity, and there can be lots and lots of confusion around social rules and interaction. But when we only focus on what someone can't do, we miss out on all the things they can do, often exceptionally well. And so now we understand that autistic people have a spiky profile as demonstrated here, with significant strengths and significant challenges. So the work I do is to challenge stereotypes, dispel myths and misconceptions, and really importantly, share the positives. Sharing the experiences of how people see, smell, touch, hear the world differently in order to illustrate that if we create an environment where people can thrive, autistic people can share their strengths, talents, and abilities. So of the thousands of autistic students I've worked with over the years, one thing I can definitely say for sure is that every individual is totally unique in their presentation of autism. Of course, there are traits and characteristics that are common and overlap because that is autism after all, but there are also significant differences. So the good news is that there is an increasing appetite on the part of organisations and employers to learn and do more to recruit and harness the strengths of autism and neurodiversity generally. So many high-profile examples, as can be seen here, so Microsoft, EY, GCHQ, have demonstrated how the barriers to work can be removed by offering work trials instead of interviews and assessment centres, and supporting people to be their authentic selves at work, rather than have to mask and camouflage their traits, which can easily lead to overwhelm and burnout. And in the face of a skills shortage in the UK, getting the right person for the job has never been more important. Organisations that have pursued these different ways of recruiting talent are now reporting the commercial benefits of getting this right, with autistic team members outperforming their non-autistic peers by 50% within a few weeks of starting, and the business gaining a competitive advantage as a result. So getting it right is a win-win. And so my advice for careers advisors: use your employer engagement activities to explore how the organisations that you work with, how they recruit, and encourage them to join the most forward-thinking organisations who recognise the value of inclusion and want to get it right, in order that you can then encourage your students to apply and for their strengths to be harnessed. Encourage your students and graduates to look for those employers who use inclusive recruitment processes, who are disability confident employers, or those who actively encourage neurodivergent candidates to apply. Organisations such as Evenbreak, Accessible Job Boards, only use employers that place vacancies on the site who are serious about looking beyond the disabilities and identify the skills that people have. When working one-to-one with students and graduates, help them to identify their strengths. If they've been educated in a deficit model, only looking at what they can't do, they can probably tell you all about that, but not so much what they're good at. Encourage people to share their autism. It's part of them after all, and ask for adjustments in order that they can then be supported to work at their best. And for employers, review your processes. Are you getting the applicants you need for the roles you're recruiting to? Are you an employer of choice? Explore the ways of recruiting that give you access to the widest talent pool by offering work trials, supported internships, for example, those offered by Ambitious About Autism. Make sure you comply with the law. So in the UK, the Equality Act triggers a legal duty for you to make reasonable adjustments, and this includes the application stage. If people ask for questions in advance or a written copy of questions to refer to in an interview, which supports their memory, provide them. This is not an unfair advantage, it's a reasonable adjustment. You will get more from the candidate in an interview. And trust me, I've done this and seen the positive results. Don't forget that it's not just about recruitment. Remember onboarding, ongoing line management, the whole employee life cycle. An autistic candidate won't stop being autistic when they start with you. Remember those barriers. But of course, you're not expected to know this if it's new to you. Work with a neurodiversity specialist to arrange training, policy and process review and action planning, and workplace assessments, which will work with you and your team member to identify barriers and solutions. So there is our very, very whistle-stop tour. Over to you for questions, and please feel free to get in touch with me if there's anything I can do to support you, either with existing work that you're doing, or if you have a project or aspiration that you would like to explore. I'd be delighted to talk to you about it.